If you're moving to Bettendorf, Iowa, you're probably researching what it's like to live here. And as a part of that research, you're probably noticing some reviews. Well, in this video, we're gonna go over the worst reviews that Bettendorf has, but we're also gonna cover the best ones and react and tell you a little bit more about what it actually is like to live here. So stick around, we're gonna go over those reviews right now. Now, obviously we're gonna cover the worst reviews, but I wanna show you the good things about Bettendorf first. And we're gonna start with the best reviews, starting at 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, and down into the 1-star reviews. So if you wanna know what the worst reviews are, you're gonna wanna stick around to the end of the video because we'll react to those last. So starting off with the 5-star reviews, I'm gonna add my own commentary to what I think of these reviews. Now, these are just opinions of other people. It doesn't give you the full scope of what Bettendorf is like, but it does give you an idea. The first review we have here is Bettendorf is a very safe area that is on the uprise. There is a lot of development going on and lots to do. A great example of this is the development going on around the Bettplex. It's a very exciting time to be living in Bettendorf. So that's an awesome review talking about Bettendorf, and I can tell from what they're talking about, a fairly recent review as well. So a lot of things to do in Bettendorf. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be a little bit lacking in things to do, but because of the development that they're talking about in this review, the Bettplex, there has been an explosion of development up north in Bettendorf that is really helping stuff as far as things to do. So the Bettplex was the first thing. That is like an arcade, a sports arena, whole bunch of different things in one, and things are developing up around it. There's restaurants, there are gas stations, other things, and the biggest one that's happening right now is the Iron T is getting put up. And if you're not familiar with what the Iron T is, it's like a Topgolf except for on a smaller scale. It's a really cool thing. Topgolf didn't want to come here, but the city of Bettendorf still wanted something like that. So they recruited Iron T to come and make that. So it's really popping when we're talking about the developments going on in North Bettendorf. So I'm super excited to see what that goes. But that's what this guy is talking about, that everything is really looking on the uprise because a lot of development is going on in Bettendorf. Now let's head on into our second 5-star review. Now obviously these are 5-star reviews. People are really happy with how Bettendorf is with these reviews. And again, we're gonna get to the bad reviews at the end, so stick around for that. But our second one is the majority of Bettendorf is a very safe place to live and have a family. While it doesn't have a crazy amount of things to do in the city and surrounding cities, it has opportunities in food, activities, and housing. So I believe this is an older review that doesn't cover the things to do because like I said, in the past, it really was kind of desolate as far as things to do, but that has really changed. Now about the other things, the opportunities for food and activities, yes, that is very true. And again, this wasn't really the case not too long ago, specifically around the food. There wasn't a ton of restaurants, but because of that development up north, like we talked about in the first review, there's a lot more coming. And in downtown Bettendorf, it's really changed as well. A lot of things have been developed down there because of the new I-74 bridge. The city's put a focus on revitalizing the downtown area and new restaurants coming in like Yoso. The Riverside Grill is down there. Verde is down there. Is a lot of really cool different restaurants going in there, so a lot of cool opportunities, and it's all because of that development that the city really pushes right now as we speak. All right, so let's go and move on to our third and final 5-star review and just see what somebody has to say about it. Now, the third one says, awesome city, close to Chicago, St. Louis, Iowa City, Des Moines, right on the Mississippi, and the people are friendly. The schools are excellent, the city is growing, and the job market is good. So that is an excellent review talking about Bettendorf, but how true is it? I'd say it's actually fairly true. The thing about Bettendorf and really the Quad Cities as a whole is we're centrally located to a lot of different areas. They talked about Chicago, they talked about Des Moines. Chicago and Des Moines, great areas to go and visit. They talked about Iowa City with the Iowa hospitals up there. That's within 50 minutes. Chicago's within 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on where you're going in Chicago. And Des Moines is about 2.5 hours away. So really easy access to a lot of different areas. And it's a big benefit of living in Bettendorf because you have access to I-80 not too far away. Now, when it comes to the schools that they are talking about, yes, we have basically two different school systems here in Bettendorf, the Bettendorf school system and the Pleasant Valley school system. Both are ranked very highly on niche.com. Pleasant Valley being #1 in Bettendorf and actually #1 in the state of Iowa, and the Bettendorf school system, which is ranked #2 in the Quad Cities. So highly ranked schools when it comes to Bettendorf, and people really like that, as you can see in this review. Now, that really does it for our 5-star reviews. And again, that's a little bit biased because somebody really likes it. And I don't know about you, when I'm going and looking at reviews, say on Amazon, I'm looking for maybe the 4 or the 3-star reviews to kind of get a better picture of what it actually looks like. So we'll head on into the 4-star reviews and just see what they have to say about it. Now, our first 4-star review says, "It is a nice area for suburban life. There is not much to do in Bettendorf for shopping, sports, and other attractions, but Davenport has minor league baseball. There's shopping in neighboring areas, and the river is right against the city." Now, again, we talked about this in the 5-star reviews about nothing to do. That really was the case. Now it's really changing, but it was the case. So I understand where that review is coming from, but they talked about other things to do in Davenport, and that is actually very true. If you're not from around here, Davenport and Bettendorf border each other, and you really can't tell when you cross over into Davenport right on the line. You have super easy access to Davenport and its amenities. The minor league baseball team called the River Bandits, right down on the river. Great entertainment if you want to go down there. The farmers market is right by the River Bandits stadium, and that happens every Saturday during the summer and then every Saturday during the winter, but they have an indoor version of the farmers market. So if you can't find something to do in Bettendorf, you have Davenport as an option. But again, Bettendorf is really developing what you can do here. So it's really on the up and up when it comes to things to do. All right, so that is our first 4-star review. What is gonna be our second review? Let's just jump on in and actually take a look at what the second review is for the 4 stars. "I have lived in Bettendorf all my life and have really enjoyed it. There's an active emergency service department that has always made me feel safe. There are 2 great school systems in Bettendorf, each with strong academics, extracurriculars, and community involvement. The town itself is kept quite clean and nice, looks beautiful for all seasons. There's a lot to do around town, many good restaurants and local shops to support. Overall, I have found Bettendorf people to be hardworking and kind individuals." I love this review. It has a lot going on in there and a lot to really discuss. I got to be a part of what they call a Citizens Academy, and I got to see the behind the scenes of every part of city administration, but we also got to see the emergency department, and they're completely right. The emergency department is well prepared for anything that life can throw at you, the weather can throw at you, just anything. And it's really cool to see that behind the scenes. So I definitely agree with what they got going on there. The city takes a stance that they want their people to have what they need, so when the time arises, they are ready to go. And we already touched on these schools being #1 and #2, so no need to keep talking about that. But again, you can see from the reviews that people really do like the school system right here in Bettendorf. And when it comes to being a clean city, I would 100% agree with that. You don't really see a lot of trash lying around. And I think it's just the pride of the community picking up after ourselves, and the city as well, because the city gets out to all their parks and really puts a lot of effort into making the city look really nice all over. So it's really got that going for it, and I agree with this review a lot. Now, you may have noticed I have a Bettendorf hat on. I actually got this hat from a client of mine who just recently bought a house in Bettendorf. So super excited for him to be here in Bettendorf. And if you're thinking about moving to Bettendorf and you want some help on where exactly you should fit into Bettendorf, well, give me a call. My number is popping up down below. I'd love to help you out. Find the great spot for you and your family, as I am a licensed realtor here in the state of Iowa and in Bettendorf. Now let's move on to the third 4-star review. And what does the 4-star review say in this case? Well, it's a long one, so stick with me. I have lived in the QCA, including Bettendorf, for almost 15 years. Out of the 4 major Quad cities, Bettendorf is the best in almost every aspect. The only downfall is that the cost of living isn't cheap compared to the other 3 cities. Aside from the prices for housing and other costs, living is an awesome place to live, grow, and prosper. They have great community events, a family museum that keeps the exhibits fresh, and the library is a state of art. A couple of art galleries, a ton of good places to eat, movie theaters, and other nightlife places for adults and college students. Plus, they have one of the largest community campuses in the Midwest. From any age, Bettendorf is a great place to grow up, go to school, and have a career and a family. Wow, that was a long one to read, and there's a lot to unpack there. Now, a lot of things going on with this. They talked about being the cities. Yes, in the Quad cities, we have 4 cities. There's actually a little bit more than that, but 4 major cities. And obviously, they really like Bettendorf when they're talking about it in their review. The one thing I will say that has a lot of truth to it is that Bettendorf housing is a little bit more expensive than the other cities. And, you know, we're talking the average home being about probably 200 to 250, and the other cities you're probably looking at 180,000 on average. Now, it really depends on what part of the city you're in, but in general, Bettendorf is going to be higher priced housing. And along with that, a lot of higher priced things like the restaurants are usually going to be a little bit higher priced, but that's just to be expected when you're in a higher priced housing area. Typically, other things are going to cost a little bit more as well. And when it comes to some of those facilities they were talking about, the family museum, the library are great resources. I love going to the library all the time. I'm one to really like to read, so I don't like to buy all the books that I have to read. So going to the library is a super awesome aspect of it. And the family museum, also a really cool aspect because you get to take your family there, and they have some really cool exhibits. When you walk in, there's this giant ladder cage thing that kids can climb all the way up to the ceiling and climb all the way back down. 100% safe, but it's a really cool asset to Bettendorf, and this review really highlights that. Now we're headed on into the 3-star reviews, and really 3-star reviews are my favorite because they really can tell you a lot about a product, or in this case, a city, because it feels a little bit more balanced on what that person is telling you. They're not super excited, they're also not hating, so it gives you a good balanced look. So our first 3-star review is that very expensive to live here in Bettendorf, has wonderful schools, great place to raise a family, culturally diverse, lots of places for physical activity. Yes, so a lot of stuff going on in a short little clip. We've already talked about the pricing. Yes, Bettendorf is the most expensive on average for housing in the Quad cities. So it's just something that you're gonna have to expect. If you're moving here, you wanna be in Bettendorf, expect to pay for being able to be in Bettendorf. And we've already touched on the schools, so we don't have to talk about that again. But the physical activity part, yeah, there is a ton of physical activity going on in Bettendorf. You can see right behind me that there is a bike trail, and you may have seen somebody ride by and run by not too long ago, and we're in the middle of winter. So you have options to get out. They take care of it, they maintain it. It's snowing right now, and they got this taken care of. So a lot of options outdoors, but indoors, there are gyms all over the Bettendorf area. So you have options when it comes to indoor activities if outdoors is too cold for you, or maybe there's a storm going on. So a lot of options here in Bettendorf. It's really cool to see that in the city. All right, so that is our first 3-star review. And our second 3-star review, honestly, is not gonna tell us a whole lot more, but I wanna read it to you anyway. The housing is pretty expensive here. All the houses are pretty nice though. The areas in Bettendorf are all nice to live as well. So again, we don't have to beat this to death, but it does get more expensive here in Bettendorf. But the thing I like about this review is it tells you that pretty much every area you're gonna live in is very nice. So just consider that, you know, the prices are higher, but from what this review is saying, they like most of the areas. So it's really kind of cool to see that in a review. All right, so let's head on to our third and final 3-star review. There are many things to do outside, such as sports, activities like hiking or running. The parks are nice, however, there are no national parks near us and very little wildlife. Pollution is not much of a problem here. So yes, we've talked about outdoor activities, and again, this says that we have plenty of outdoor activities that you can get to, but my biggest gripe about Bettendorf is actually written in here is there really is not a great, what I would call wilderness areas. There's no national parks really close by. We do have Scott County Park, which is north of town, but for the amount of people that are in the Quad Cities and the amount of land that's out there, you get a lot of people out there walking the trails, and it's not really secluded like I had when I was growing up in Western Iowa, where we had acres and acres of land and you wouldn't see anybody for hours and hours. So it is a gripe of mine that we don't have a great system as national parks, but Iowa in general just doesn't have that. So if you're expecting national parks, you're gonna be kind of disappointed in what you get. Now you're expecting that we're gonna go on to the 2-star reviews. And unfortunately / fortunately, there was no 2-star reviews. And if you're curious where I'm getting these reviews, it's actually on niche.com. So go take a look for yourself. Now, if you're looking into the future, maybe there is a 2-star review there now, but when I looked at it, there were none. So we're gonna go ahead and skip to the 1-star reviews, which is what a lot of you have been waiting for and seeing my reaction and what kind of stuff I have to say about it. I will say they are a little longer, so bear with me on these as well. The thing about the 1-star reviews is I wanted to do 3 reviews for each level. This one only had 2. So it's probably a good sign, but just got to give you that warning straight up here. So the first 1-star review says, Bettendorf is supposed to be the nicest of the Quad Cities, but their zoning laws are totally insensitive to the residents. Mixed use is what drew me to my neighborhood, but they allow restaurants to have full-on bands with jacked up amplifiers outdoors in areas surrounded closely by residential homes. First responders, hospital workers, grocery store / convenience store workers, some construction work, etc. all have to be to work very early, even on the weekends and holidays. Don't plan on being able to get a good night's sleep or get your kids to bed at a reasonable hour. Further insult to injury is the outrageous cost of city services, water, sewer, garbage, etc. They cost excessively more than anywhere else I've lived in the last 30 years, 6 cities in 5 other states. In theory, our income and social demographics make us target residents, but I'll be moving back to Moline as soon as I can. Okay, so what's going on in this review? A lot of things. First off, the concept of the zoning laws. There's been some stuff going on in Bettendorf where people have complained about zoning laws as of late, and it has to do with a lot of the development that's going on. What Bettendorf does is they created a master plan, for 30 years, and they've designated areas outside of town, which was outside of town at the time, as mixed use or commercial or residential and so on and so forth. Now, as things have developed, those pieces of land that were designated to be mixed use, commercial, so on and so forth, are being developed, and some people are not liking it because residential is next to commercial or mixed use. But the thing about it is those have been designated that way for 30 years, and it's just now getting developed. The city has taken the stance of they're working with residents if it does arise. So people are getting frustrated with it, which I understand. The thing I don't understand about this review specifically, though, is they said they looked for a mixed use area, which in mixed use, you get commercial and you get residential. So if they were looking for a mixed use area, I'm not sure why they're complaining about mixed use issues. That being said, if they wanted to get something else, they could get a residential area where it would be quiet and wouldn't have the issues with the bands and all that. So take it as you want. There is zoning. Obviously in Bettendorf, they do try to work with citizens and commercial properties on trying to get the best use out of the land that is designated for whatever use it's designated for. And when it comes to the city services, I can't really speak on if it's expensive or not, because here is the only place I've ever owned a home. I've never had an experience with other places. So I don't know if it's more expensive in other states and cities, but I can tell you that I feel like it's fairly reasonable in the city of Bettendorf. But again, I have no prior experience in other locations on if it is more expensive than other states. Now, our final review for our 1-star comes to us in a little bit of a shorter package. What an awful place. I would never want to go back here. Horrible place to live, high living costs, very mean people. I got robbed 7 times in a year. This is a horrible place, and if you're reading this, never go here for your own sake. Now, obviously, this person doesn't like Bettendorf. Not really sure sure where she got robbed 7 times, and I feel bad for them if that was the case. But generally speaking, I haven't heard about this happening. Now, the whole thing about the living costs, we've talked about it. Yes, the cost of living in Bettendorf is a little bit higher, especially when it comes to the housing costs. So that part is very true. Again, I can't say yes or no on the whole robbing thing. I've never experienced it, but it's very possible that it could have happened in 1 year. I can't speak to it because I don't really know. But if you want to move to Bettendorf, you liked the reviews and you like the reactions, let me know. I am a licensed realtor here in Bettendorf. I can help you find a home and find a neighborhood within Bettendorf that's really gonna suit your life and your family. My number is popping up down below. If you have any questions, concerns, give me a call, send me a text. But if you just wanna watch another video, well, check out this video about Bettendorf here.